The chorus is a very real easy chorus to learn. Some of us might know the verses, but you can find it online. Except our version of it as a Seventh-day Adventist, the last verse says, "Hold the temperance banner high." The original version says, "Hold the gospel banner high." So we're going to pray. Let us bow our heads for prayer. Loving Father and our God, we thank you for the 2 meals we received today, spiritual food most of all, and the physical food. Lord, thank you for your gracious provision in that you have given us life and you have given it to us more abundantly. Thank you for blessing us and for keeping us. We need Jesus now more than ever. Oh, Father and our God, we ask you that your Holy Spirit will come divinely near us and possess us. May we yield our wills to your will, so that we might not yield to temptation, because yielding is sin. And each victory we have over temptation will encourage us to gain other victories. May we fight manfully onwards and dark passions subdue. May we look ever to Jesus, because he will carry us through. Lord, and we ask you today to help us, because you will comfort and keep us. And we know that you're willing to save us. Thank you for your mercies. Thank you for your love. And whatever is said and done, may it be said and done to your name's honor and glory, and be with the presenters, Sister Sybil and Dr. Theodore. We ask you, O God, that you will use them in a mighty way to expound on the gospel, to speak the gospel of health, so that your people might respond in a way so that we can live healthier lives, so that we can lead others to you. Bless us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so the song goes like this: Dare to be, well, I'm not going to sing it yet, but some of us might know it. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone. That's a chorus. Dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. So we're going to start it after 3. 1, 2, 3. Standing by a purpose firm, in God's command, honor them, the faithful few. All hail to Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. Many mighty men are lost, daring not to stand, who for God had been a host in Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. Many giants great and tall, stalking through the land, headlong to the earth would fall if met by Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. Hold the temperance banner high, unto victory grand. Satan and his hosts defy, and shout for Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. All right. Do we have a favorite that anyone would like us to sing? A favorite song? Anyone? Okay. All right. We'll sing number 626. Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way. And then after that, Dr. Watkins will come up. 626. In a little while, we're going home. All right? Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way. In a little while we're going home, for the night will end in the everlasting day. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows from. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. We will do the work that our hands may find to do. In a little while we're going home. And the grace of God will our daily strength renew. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. We will smooth the path for some weary, wayworn feet. In a little while we're going home. And may loving hearts spread around and influence sweet. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. There's a rest beyond, there's relief from every care. In a little while we're going home. And no tear shall fall in the city bright and clear. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. Amen. You want to stand here or? Okay.
All right, all right. In a little while, we're going home. I believe that more and more every day. You know, it's interesting because growing up, heaven was never one of my goals. You know, I wasn't, maybe because I grew up poor, gold didn't faze me. You know, I wasn't looking for those streets of gold. No. None of that stuff. But coming to know Christ as my personal Savior, you know, and looking at what's going on in this world, this place is crazy. And this world can't last too much longer. And so it's exciting to me to think that in a little while we're going to go home. Now, I don't know what's happening with these other folk, but we're going to move on. We're going to talk about preventing and reversing disease, chronic diseases naturally. Preventing and reversing chronic diseases naturally. Now, chronic disease, you know, we define it as a condition that's persistent and often progressive in nature. It's persistent and it's often progressive in nature. Chronic diseases is often referred to as degenerative diseases. So we have these chronic degenerative diseases. And these are the things that's really killing us primarily. You know, these diseases, chronic, progressive, degenerative. That's some tough stuff. And the sad thing is that these diseases are continuing in spite of us doing what we're supposed to do, or at least what we're told to do. All right? So that becomes quite demoralizing because you follow the doctor's direction. You start off on one blood pressure medicine and you end up on 2, 3, and your blood pressure is still not controlled. There's a problem. You know, you start out on your diabetic medicine and you take your medicine faithfully. You follow the diet that's prescribed. And instead of getting better, you get worse. You know, those conditions I talked about this morning, you know, the hands, you know, they call it stocking glove distribution of neuropathy. You know, these are in people who are following. You know, next their eyes start messing up. You know, someone was talking in church a few months ago, how they were giving them shots in their eyes, you know, without anesthesia. It just blew my mind, you know. And then the kidneys, they're gone. So we need to recognize that this is a problem. The leading causes of death in this country, heart disease is still number one. Heart disease is still number one. Cancer, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, strokes, accidents, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and kidney failure. All right, so heart disease. Heart disease is the number one killer in the United States. Number one killer in the United States. Every year, over 600,000 people die from heart disease. Now, when I first put a presentation together on heart disease, the number was 500,000. It was 500,000. And last year I decided, well, let me update, you know, and see if we're getting any better. We're getting worse. And we're getting worse in spite of spending all this money. And I took this was getting too long, so I took the slides out dealing with the money that we're spending. We're spending humongous money on heart disease and cancer and so forth, diabetes. In addition to the 600,000 deaths, there's another 1.5 million individuals, and that's spelled wrong, that have a heart attack each year. 1.5 million having a heart attack. All right? Now, why is this? It's a preventative disease, and yet we're dying. And if you have a heart attack, the first symptom, and about half the people, is sudden death. The first symptom is sudden death. Meaning, oh, Lord, and it's over. You don't get a chance to change. The first symptom is sudden death. If you survive that heart attack, half of the people who survive will have the second heart attack and kill them. All right? So this thing doesn't just go away. It's not just a bad dream. It's real. Cancer is the number 2 cause of death in this country. At one point, about 2006, At least in some statistics, they thought that cancer had become number one, but it didn't stay there long. Heart disease got jealous and killed off a few more folk, you know. But cancer is and I showed you this picture because, see, we throw these numbers around, but they don't really mean too much to us, you know. 100,000 people, 500,000 people, 1 million people. I mean, we don't really appreciate the numbers. And so here on the mall, that's 500,000 people. They die every year. Every year, they die. I did a presentation or a study once, winning the war on disease. It was during the first Gulf War, and it bothered me that every day we would hear on the news about people dying. But, you know, it was 2, 10, 20 people. And it hit me that we make all this noise about these people dying. What about the people who are dying from heart disease and cancer? And we don't say a word. And so I went and I said, let me find out how many people actually die from war. And I calculated the number of people who died in all the wars that we've been in since the American Revolutionary War up until this present time. It's a little over 1 million people. We lose that number every year from cancer and heart disease alone. You understand what I'm saying? And we don't say a word. It ain't no big deal. Well, another one's gone. If that many people were dying in war, you know, we're still talking about 9/11. How many people died at 9/11? Was it 3,000 or something? Yeah. You know, we lose that many in a week. Every week. And we don't say a word. Do you understand the point I'm making? We use many more than that. I'm sorry. Many more than that. Every week. And we don't say a word. All right. So we need to stop and look and understand that these numbers are real. And every person who dies is a person. You know, it's not just a statistic. It's an individual that's dying. And it will be us or someone close to us. Now, I'm not afraid of death. You know, I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of death. But I don't want to die prematurely, you know. That's the thing, you know. And I mean, God has blessed me. I've enjoyed my life. But I got some plans. I went to Oakwood, my 50th year, graduated from college. I'm an old man now, you know. He ain't even got to 50 yet. I'd have graduated from college in 50 years, you know. So, but I went down early, a day early, because one of my boys had died. And so I went down for his funeral. And then, while there, I saw my play sister. And I said, "Where's your husband?" I called him by name. And she said, "Ted, you didn't hear? He's dead." I mean, we're sitting at the table in the hotel eating. And so when I got back, I couldn't sleep. I woke up early. It was the Sabbath morning. I woke up early in the morning. And I started writing a plan. I said, I cannot just sit down and let my friends die. You know, I got word of another friend who had died. And I used to, when I would go down to Oakwood, we would always see them. She and her family would be sitting in a certain spot, you know. And so I knew where I could find them because they you know, it was their tradition to be there. So here my friends are dying. I said, I got to do something about it, you know. So these people who are dying, they're real people. You know, they're real people. And we need to get aware of what is going on. So, lung cancer is still the number one cause of cancer death in men and in women. Lung cancer is still the number one cause of cancer death in men and women. Why is that? So many people have stopped smoking. Well, it's secondhand smoke, but also to tobacco, yes. Barbecuing.
Yeah, even if you barbecue vegetables, you might smoke them.
Yeah. You know, in Japan has one of the lowest rates of cancer in the world. But if you look at an exam, and Doc can tell you, you go to the exam and they'll say, highest rate of stomach cancer, where is it? It's Japan. Why? They smoke fish. Smoke fish. They eat this grilled fish, and when you grill it, the proteins, you know, you get these carcinogens, the nitroamines and the benzopyrenes are associated with charcoal, and they cancer. But in addition to that, with the lung cancer, we can't overlook the cigarette. It's still the cigarette is the main one. These other things are they're there too. But the cigarette, the tars, the nicotines, the other chemicals are just worse. You know, yes.
Does anybody here know who introduced the cigarettes?
The what?
Who introduced the cigarettes? I'm just wondering if anybody knows, because I can tell you.
Yes.
Came from a Jesuit.
A Jesuit.
Yes. He started the movie stars on it, and you can actually see way back that you see the Pope smoked, and he introduced it to the rest of the world. So Jesuits too.
Well, our current Pope is a Jesuit, I believe. All right, so lung cancer is number one. Prostate in men, number two. Breast in women, number three. Colorectal cancer, number three in men and in women. All right? Strokes. Strokes is the fourth leading cause of death in the United States. You know? And we're getting, you know, we can have the hemorrhagic stroke where the blood vessel bursts, or you can have the ischemic stroke where you just get a cut off of the blood supply. But strokes is still bad. And you know, we think about strokes in terms of disability. But here every year more than 800,000 people have a stroke. You know, 800,000. Almost 130 of them die. 130,000 people. That's a lot of people. That's every year. All right? And it is one, if not the leading cause of long-term disability in the United States. Nearly 1 in 4 persons who had a stroke has had a previous stroke. So you have one, and then you have again and again. Why do you keep having these strokes? Because you're not changing. Just like we said with a heart attack. If you have a heart attack and you survive it, 50% of people who have have a heart attack, and we talked earlier, some of you were late, 1.5 million people every year. Half of them, the first symptom is sudden death. And if you survive the first one, half of those people will have a heart attack and die. And so, but they will do it if they don't change. If they change, they can avoid that. But if not, here these people are having multiple strokes. Diabetes. Diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in this country. Diabetes is one of, I don't want to use the word favorite, but it's one of the diseases that I really like to treat because we can reverse diabetes. You know, I hate to lose. You know, I hate to lose in anything. In marbles, in basketball, and baseball. As a result, I was always good at most things. If I do it, I'm going to be good at it. You know, why? Because I hate to lose. You know? So, diabetes is something in 3 days, in most cases, in 3 days with type 2 diabetes, I get patients off their medication with their normal blood sugar. 3 days. All right? Sometimes 5, but in most cases 3 days. And then if they are willing to follow the diet, in 3 months they're no longer diabetic. So diabetes can be reversed. All right? Now, it's the 7th leading cause of death. All right? And look here, California. This study came out just last year. 55% of the adults are diabetic or pre-diabetic. The whole state, over half the folk in the state are diabetic or pre-diabetic. All right? Go check it out. See, one of the things I like, challenge me, I double, triple dare you. You know? Tell me that I'm wrong. You know? Prove it to me. Go read the article. All right? California, the Center for Public Health Advisory. All right? UCLA. It's the number one cause of blindness. It's the number one cause of amputation. It's the number one cause of kidney failure in whites. The number 2 cause in blacks. The number 1 cause of kidney failure in black is what? Hypertension. All right? Hypertension. I've only seen one person that was a diabetic that wasn't hypertensive. One. So that means you got the number 1 and the number 2 cause. Yes, sir.
Question about the diabetes. Type 1, type 2, you indicate it's reversible. I couldn't agree more. Is one more difficult to reverse?
Yes, one is much more difficult. One is what we used to call juvenile diabetes, and it is an autoimmune disease. All right, I was talking to one of my buddies. His name is Dr. Ernie Plotter, and Ernie and I, we did a lot of community stuff. But Ernie was the vice chair of the Viral Institute at NIH, and so we were talking one day. I said, Ernie, we know the cause of type 2 diabetes, but what about type 1? He said it's one of the viruses. I'm blocking now. But, you know, and he gave me a specific number, Coxsackie. And he gave me a specific number. And I said, oh, really? That means you're crazy. No virus going to cause diabetes. That's just ridiculous. 20 years later, I read in a viral magazine, we have now discovered what Ernie had discovered 20 years prior, that Coxsackie may be contributing to type 1 diabetes. Now, and what happens is the virus attacks the pancreas, and then what happens? The body attacks the virus. But the virus is what? Embedded in the pancreas. And so it does what? It destroys the pancreas. All right? And so if you catch it early, you can reverse it. But if you don't catch it early, you cannot reverse it. All right? That's type 1. And then there's, one second, then there's what I call type 1.5. And I don't know if that's really an official name, but I call it 1.5. And that's an adult who has diabetes, who's skinny like me. All right? And was skinny when they got the diabetes. That's not a typical, and they'll come in and say they're type 2 diabetes. You're not type 2 diabetes. Because a type 2 diabetic, you just slim them down and they will go into remission. But a type 1.5, you must deal with the immune system. If you don't build the immune system, you can't get them well. And so what we do is that we help to build the immune system as well as change their diet and so forth. Yes?
And type 1 diabetes also comes from inheritance due to milk drinking habits.
Dr. Neil Bernard of the Physicians for Responsible Medicine sued one of the pediatric associations, I don't remember which one it was, for recommending milk to children, cow's milk, and won. It took a number of years, but they won the suit where they cannot recommend milk for children under the age of 2 years old because of diabetes, type 1 diabetes. All right? And so this thing is real, but we can avoid it. We can avoid being fat, and we can avoid drinking milk. All right? It's just the reality. You know, my nickname in high school and college was Weenie Bill, and because I was so skinny. You know, I'm fat now, you know. So I gave myself, you know, about 20 years or so ago, I gave myself permission to gain 20 pounds. But when I started gaining weight, I started getting a belly, you know. And so I took away the permission. And I lost the weight. Because, see, a belly is inconsistent with my image that I have of myself. So I didn't tell anybody because that sounds crazy. How are you just going to think weight on and think weight off? Because I never changed my diet. I didn't change my diet when I gained the weight. I didn't change my diet when I lost the weight. I changed my thinking. I said, you can gain weight. And I started putting on weight. No, you can't gain it that way. And I took it off again. All right? The mind is a terrible thing to waste. It increases the incidence of heart attacks by some 400% and strokes by some 200%. This is diabetes. So I tell people that diabetes, in my mind, is worse than cancer because it strikes people at an earlier age. It lasts longer. It has this long history of maiming and disabling its victims, and then it kills them. So it tortures you, and then it kills you. You know? So it's a terrible disease. But for type 2, which is the main one, it's totally preventable. And it's reversible. But I tell folk, and I ain't going to ask how many in this church got type 2 diabetes. But when I leave, most of you will still have it. All right? Why? Because you don't want change. I do this, I'm always doing calls. So I do a Wednesday call. It's called Wellness Wednesday. I've been doing it about 4 years now. And this past Wednesday, I did it on cancer prevention. And there was an article that cited the World Health Organization. And they was talking about the impact of chicken on colon cancer. All right? Now, for those who are interested in finding about chicken, you can probably go to my website, or they still may have it on the station, WPFWFM.org, WPFWFM.org, and look. My show is called To Your Health. It's Mondays at 2 o'clock. I did a show on fish, and I did a show on chicken, those other white meats. All right? All right. At any rate, this particular article is separate from those shows. This particular article focused on how these chickens were associated with these carcinogens, which was causing cancer. And the meat industry said, we're really not concerned about this study because people are not going to even hear it. And if they do hear it, they're not going to change because the article said they're more concerned about taste satisfaction. This is what the article said now. They're more, and I got it over here, I can read it to you. They're more concerned about taste satisfaction than they are about the level of carcinogens in the food. All right? That's quite an indictment. But it's the truth. It's the truth. So it's maiming, it's killing. See, so we talked about the kidney failure, heart failure, amputation, blindness, and vascular. And this includes, you brothers, impotence. Impotence. Because of the small blood vessels feeding the genitals, they get knocked out too. And so diabetes is a major cause. And then children. And this is from a study, I think it was the New England Journal of Medicine, 2005. So this is an old study. All right? This study, 12 years old now? There was a what? Tenfold increase in childhood diabetes over the past 20 years. So this is up to 2005. All right? And this one is, they looked at, was published in 2014, but they looked at children from 2000 to 2009. Type 1 diabetes, a 21% increase. Type 2 diabetes, a 30% increase. You know, every now and then you gotta upgrade, and every time you upgrade, things are getting worse. They're not getting better. They're getting worse. They're not getting better. Yeah, we're spending all this money, all this research, all this advancement, and you're dying faster. I call that stupid. 167,000 children with type 1 diabetes, that's less than age 20, greater than 20,000 children with type 2. Type 2 used to be adult diabetes. So why are children getting adult diabetes? Because they're fat, just like their mamas and daddies. All right? They're fat. It has nothing to do with genetics. It is the mouth, the fork. The fork rules. All right, then kidney failure. Eighth leading cause of death in the United States, kidney failure. When a patient is diagnosed with kidney failure, it seems almost worse than when I tell them they got cancer. I mean, psychologically. It is such a terrible thing. And what I'm going to suggest is all of you, if you have not gotten your blood checked, you get your blood checked and look at your glomerular filtration rate. Because what I'm finding, the normal glomerular filtration rate is greater than 59, all right? But I saw a patient 2 weeks ago who had a glomerular filtration rate of 140. I've seen several patients with a glomerular filtration rate of 120. 100 is no big deal. 90, So if it's around 59, 60, 65, you almost in kidney failure. So you don't wait till you get to kidney failure to holler. But what I find is I get patients that come to me who've been followed by their doctor for years, and the doctor never told them that they about to go into kidney failure. Never told them. I said, boy, I ought to give them my wife's card and tell her to start suing doctors. Yes.
Pronounce that again, but a little slower. Something filtration.
GFR, glomerular filtration rate. And when I was in med school, we only did the glomerular filtration rate on, in special cases because it was very difficult to do. Now it's a routine test. And so as part of the panel that I do on my patients, the comprehensive panel, it's automatic, the glomerular filtration rate. And so you need to know what it is, because your doctor may not tell you that you are going into kidney failure. And the reason it's important is because kidney failure can be stopped and can be reversed. All right? It can be stopped and reversed. A quick little story. When I left surgery, one of the first things that I did was I started a program for seniors in D.C. called Walk for Life. I went to the head of housing, Mr. Clay, in Washington, and I asked for permission to go into the senior buildings. I wanted to work with old, poor, uneducated black folks, because I figured you don't get any sicker than that. And if I could help them, then I could help anybody. And so I got permission. I went in. First building was Garfield Terrace, and then Judiciary Building, and Harvard Towers, and Arthur Kappa, and then one of my patients had a community center, and I did. And so I became well known in D.C. for working with seniors. And so one lady came to me, and she said, Dr. Watkins, my creatinine is 3.5. Now, in those days, we just looked at creatinines primarily. 3.5. That means that her glomerular filtration rate was around 7 to 10. It was real bad. She should have been on dialysis. And so she said, the doctor wants me to go on dialysis. I said, well, with creatinine that high, you need to go on dialysis. Normal is 1 or less, all right? And if you get to 1.5, you lost at least 50% of your kidney function. So I said, you need to go on dialysis. No, Dr. Watkins, you must help me. So I said, well, I will only do it, because I'm a little young doctor, just out in practice. I don't want to be on the front page of the Washington Post. Crazy doctor treats kidney failure patient with spinach. So I said, I will only do it if Dr. Holston, who's Adventist, who's chief of renal, and later became chief of medicine at Howard, if he'll follow you with me. So I called Dr. Holston. I said, Doc, I got this lady who has a creatinine of 3.5. She wants to avoid going on dialysis, and I think I can help her. Now, I didn't tell her thought I could help her, but I told Dr. Holston, I think I can help her. I said, but I would only do it if you follow her with me. He said, well Ted, what you going to do? I said, I'm going to put her on a diet, low in fat, low in protein, high in unrefined carbohydrates. I'm going to put her on a walking program. I'm going to put her on activated charcoal. He said, all right, Ted, if you follow her closely, I'll follow her with you. So I said, fine. So I put her on the program. She goes from 3.5 to 5.5. I said, wait a minute. that ain't going right. I said, well, you can always go on dialysis. Let's keep going. So she comes back. It's back down to 3.5. Then it's down to 2.5. Then it's down to 1.5. Then it's down to 1. When it got to 1, I sent her for a renal scan. Perfect perfusion. So I learned that we can, even in very, very sick patients with kidney failure, we can reverse them. And then, I would tell people that, and that pastor I told you about, my friend, Baptist friend up in Michigan, he had somebody call me who was on dialysis. I said, no, man, if you're on dialysis, there's nothing I can do. He said, no, doc, I was told if you can't help me, nobody can help me. I said, well, look, I'll do some further research and I'll get back to you. Well, when I did the research, unbeknownst to me, there was a study that had been done. This hospital in the Midwest, I don't even remember where it is. I have the article on my computer, where they took people on dialysis. It was about 22 of them. And they put them on coenzyme Q10, 60 milligrams, 3 times a day. And in 3 months, 12 of the 22 were off dialysis. That blew my mind. All right? So we know that even in bad kidney patients, they can be reversed. But would you know that most of my patients with kidney failure get worse and not better? Why?
Because they continue to do what they were doing.
They continue to do it. That's why I preached the sermon this morning. See, it bothered me. I first preached it at our church because I was asked to speak. I said, what am I going to speak on? Because we got 20, 30 doctors at Brinklow, So, but somebody always, we do a health minute every week, and been doing it for 7, 8 years, over that, at least 10 years, because it started with Pastor Robinson, and he'd been gone for at least 9 years. So, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about why people don't change. See, we need to really look at why we refuse to change. And you notice the word I use? Refuse to change. It's a deliberate act. It's stubbornness. You know that mule, you got to hit that mule in the head with a bat. That's the way we are. God has given us a diet and we refuse to eat it. Like God don't know what he's talking about. All right, causes of kidney failure: hypertension, diabetes, lupus, infection, toxic or allergic reactions. All right, now, all these chronic diseases that I talked about are preventable, and they're reversible. However, it's only with lifestyle. These are guys, I used to call these guys heathens, because they're not Adventists. These are heathens. And then it hit me, wait a minute. They ain't no heathens. They're rocks. Because God says that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, the rocks will cry out. All right? Before Edelston, this guy here, I didn't tell my patients to stop eating meat. They would stop because I would give them a diet and there was no meat on the diet. All right? And they come back and say, Dr. Watkins, I don't eat any more meat. But I never told them to stop eating meat. I just told them what they should eat. And I was approached being psychological. Instead of giving them a negative, I give them a positive. So instead of taking something away, I give them something. But Edelston would tell them, don't eat it. So I said, well, I ain't gonna let this brother outdo me. Huh. Huh. So I'm gonna become a rock too. You know? And Campbell, the China study, a bestseller. All right? He says if you eat meat and drink dairy, you're likely to get heart disease and cancer. If you don't eat them, you won't. All right? He ain't a rock. I mean, he ain't a heathen. He's a rock. You know? And this crazy guy up here, McDougal, oh man, he's really crazy. He wants you to eat fruits and vegetables, almost period. You know? These guys are rocks. God had to call them because we have kept silent. Reversibility, not with drugs, not with surgery, not with chemo, not with radiotherapy. All right? Not even the diet recommended by the American Heart Association or the American Cancer Association. All right? I spoke at the University of Maryland a couple years ago. And I was asked to talk about diabetes. And representatives from the American Diabetic Association were there. And I kept on with my slides. Not a single, American Heart, not a single reversal of heart disease with the diet recommended by the American Heart Association. I just went on and said it. And you know they invited me back the next year? Shocked me, but they invited me back. All right? But that's the truth. Their diet do not reverse, you know. When a nutritionist comes to work with me, I tell him, come let me teach you nutrition. Now you got a PhD, but you don't know nutrition. You know what they taught you in nutrition school, but you don't know anything about nutrition because your nutrition don't reverse any diseases. It controls symptoms. But guess what? The disease is progressing. See, you latecomers, you missed it. These diseases are progressive because they keep going in spite of you following the diet, in spite of you exercising in 20 minutes, in spite of you eating the diet that they're recommending. They're still progressing because what they're recommending is insufficient to take care of the problem. 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women in the United States will develop heart disease. You know, I have a lecture I do on heart disease in women because we think that cancer, breast cancer, is the big killer in women. No, no, no. Breast cancer kills about 1 in 16. Heart kills 1 in 4 women in this country. 1 in 16, 1 in 4. In fact, if you calculate all the deaths in women, the top 16 after heart disease kills more than all of them combined. Heart disease in women. The first heart attack I saw was a young, black, skinny female. All right? Now, she also was an alcoholic. I don't know what that had to do with it, you know. But that was it, you know. And so we have to be really concerned about these diseases. We're spending our money on drugs, on surgery, including the bypass surgery, on chemo, radiotherapy, dialysis, and other procedures and therapies. And there's what I call a strange association between the money and the treatment options. All right? And what, see, if these treatments are successful, they're only temporary. Okay? Because they do nothing to reverse, they do nothing to cure. You know? See, remember I said I hate to lose. If I'm just controlling your disease, then I've lost. All right? We have to be able to reverse. Now, I let people know in the Jump Street, I don't get anybody well. And I can't guarantee that if you do everything I tell you, that you're going to get well. But you're much more likely to get well if you do the things we say, if you don't do them. All right? Terrible diseases. What it's like is it's like we are blindly, by the millions, marching over a cliff, you know? Because what we're doing is not reversing, it's not curing. You know, when I was in the Army, we'd be marching, and they'd be singing, Jody got your girl and gone. You notice what I said? They would be singing, Jody got your girl and gone. See, because my thing was, Jody ain't got my girl. And if he got her, I ain't going to be singing about it. All right? But that's the way we doing. We singing, you know, and dying. That's stupid. All right? And we need to recognize it for what it is. You know, sometimes I tell my patients, I say, well, no, it's no problem. You don't have to change. Just go on and die. Now, I do it to get their attention. But it's the truth. You don't have to change. Just go on and die. You know, that's what you want. Go and do it. Yes.
Dr. Watkins, what I see from listening to you, I think you were totally right on with your sermon earlier today about change. What I see as a perfect complement to what you are currently doing is some type of program that is geared to really helping people understand what's necessary to make the change.
We've already done it.
Okay. I say this because we've had a personal experience where we worked with a lady who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, brought her into the home, we worked with her with medical missionary techniques that we had learned, went to her oncologist, and her oncologist asked her, so how are you dealing with your pain? And
I don't have any pain.
I don't have any pain. And then she pointed to my wife and said, this woman took away my pain. And my wife said, no.
We've started a program.
You know, so we did all of that, and we turned her around, and then she wound up dying. Why? Because she went back.
Yeah.
So the bells went off in our head and said, what can we do more? Because I think that is the challenge to our church as a whole. Yeah. Because it's not just about getting people well, because you could just make a sick center a healthy center, but we're really looking at eternity, right? That's really the bottom line here.
Yeah.
So we need to really be honing in on
so
that
so
next step.
I mean, that's exactly the way I think. So I started a health and fitness club to deal with that, you know, and so but in addition, I recently started, matter of fact, this past Thursday, I started back again. I had one before and I stopped, and I started back again, our cancer support group. And we're going to start a diabetic support group. So what we're looking at, because see, you know, the problem is money. The problem is money. You know, I can only do so much. Then I have to bring in other people, and I can't ask them to come and just volunteer forever. You know, and so the things that we do, the insurances don't pay for them.
You know, I'm with Dr. Watkins. I wasn't so much.
No, I understand, but I'm just, no. And I didn't accept it that way. No, I didn't accept it that way. And when I woke up after coming back from Oakwood, the Lord gave me a vision of how to bring our whole church involved. And so that's what I'm working on now, involving more people, bringing them in and educating them, you know, as to what they need to do, and then working how we, you know, when Trump Care passed, hopefully it won't get passed through the Senate, but when Trump Care passed, I did a radio show, and I said that the best health care plan is lifestyle change. See, it's not Obamacare, it's not Trump Care, it's lifestyle. And so, you know, Obama is certainly better than Trump, in that respect, but it doesn't go far enough. And we must go further. And we can talk more about that too. And I'll be glad to work with you on that. I like what you did and are doing. All right, so we're just, falling over the cliff because we're not doing the things. If your car's on fire, and this is important, and if you want the fire to go out, then you got to stop putting gasoline on the fire. See, we talk about the fire burning, but we really don't want the fire to go out. How do I know? Because we keep putting gasoline on it. See, now, if you didn't know that gasoline was causing the fire to burn, that's one thing. But you ain't stupid. You ain't that stupid. You're stupid, but you ain't that stupid. You understand what I'm saying?
It speaks to the power of sin. It's the carnal man.
See, you cannot change yourself. And until you recognize that it is impossible for me to do this, that I can only do it if God gives me power and does it for me. That's why that text I talked about this morning, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. See, He comes and does it for us. He does for and in us what we cannot do for ourselves, because it is stupid what we're doing. It makes absolutely no sense. We should all be in the insane asylum. Really. Because it's not that we don't know. Yes.
One of the keys to it all, the solution to the problem is God needs our consent. If He doesn't get our consent, we'll never change.
Right. He needs our consent. He will not force us. He will not force you to do anything. I had a patient. His total cholesterol was 777. His triglyceride was 7,000 something. It was ridiculous. And so I called one of my boys. Plus his kidneys, his liver enzymes and everything was off the chart. And so if you know anything about cholesterol medicines, they're all metabolized in the liver. All right? And so if your liver is damaged, then you can't take those medicines. So I called one of my boys. I said, is there any drug that we can use that will bring this brother's cholesterol down without further damage in his liver? He said, no, you know about them all, Ted. I said, I was just trying to find out if there's something new. Because I haven't prescribed a cholesterol medicine in 30 years, 40 years, at least 35 years. I've not prescribed the cholesterol medicine for someone who wasn't already on it and who wanted to stay on it. Because I tell all my patients, if you follow my diet, the first week you can get off the cholesterol medicine. It's just no big deal. All right, but at any rate, he said no. And so I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put you on our fasting program for 14 days. After that, I'm going to put you on a raw diet for at least 30 days. I want you to come into the office and I'm going to walk you. I didn't tell him, but I didn't want him out walking and fall dead. And just before he dies, he said, Dr. Watkins is my doctor. See, I have to always protect myself. And so I brought him in because I know how to exercise him. All right? And so in 2 months, his cholesterol was 118 without any medication. His triglycerides had come down to 58. All his liver enzymes were normal. And so I told him, the other thing I told him is that you got to give up your liquor. He said, Dr. Watkins, I'm willing to give up my liquor. This is our first encounter. He said, but just one thing. I just bought a brand new bottle of liquor. Is it all right for me to drink that one and then change? then stop. I said, a serious question deserves a serious answer. I cannot guarantee you that if you drink that liquor, you're going to die. But if you know what I know, you won't drink it. He said, no problem. And he stopped, just like that. So about a month, I was having him come in frequently. About a month later, I smelled a little liquor on his breath. So I took him in my office, and I closed the door. Now, when I close the door on you, you're in trouble. And I told him, I said, the devil wants to destroy you. I said, but God wants to save you. But he will not force you. You have to allow him. And he stopped, and he didn't drink again for at least 10 years. And I had another conversation with him, and he didn't drink again until he died. All right? It's like, and he would listen to me. Why? Because he knew I cared for him. And that's what we have to learn to do. See, we can't preach to people. We must love people. And we must love them into the church and love them. We're not trying to get numbers. But guess what? We get numbers. We get numbers by loving.
Amen. Amen.
All right. I got to move. The diet, no oil. This is the diet that Edelson recommends to his patients. All right. No oil, no meat, no dairy, no fish, no nuts, no avocado. I said, what? I said, why no avocado, no nuts? He said, oil. So I called him one day, and I said, okay, doc, what if we eat raw nuts versus cooked nuts? He said, well, doc, it depends. It's whether you want to be hung or shot. He said, it's the fat. I said, well, I believe that the body handles raw different than it handles cooked. I said, however, until I get the numbers, I'm going to do it your way. Because I'm not going to have my patient dying because I'm stubborn. I don't have the data, you got the data. And so took them off the nuts, took them off the avocado. I remember one time my wife and I, we said, even though we're not sick, we're going to follow the diet. And we had stir-fried vegetables. And so it was the second time we had it since we'd been on the diet. And she said, baby, the last 2 times we had stir-fried vegetables, there was no oil in there. I said, what? She said, I just used water. And what do you call that, wok or whatever? Yeah. Wok. And they guess what? It tastes good. The problem we have is that we've forgotten how to cook. See, the reason fried chicken tastes good is because of herbs and spices. If you don't use those herbs and spices, you'll become a vegetarian overnight. If you can make chicken, and if you've never tasted fried chicken without anything, try it. I'm telling you, you will not eat it. All right? If you can make chicken taste good, you can make anything taste good. So you have to change how you think. You understand? And God has to do that for you. Because if you will allow him, he'll change you. And he'll do it. Fat. Avocado is high in fat. And I know it has omega-3 fatty acids and all that stuff. But that's his philosophy. And it's hard to argue with it because it works. Because, as I'm going to show you in a minute, he reverses heart disease. And he reverses it in a very short period of time. All right? But what we have to do is we have to do our work. You see? So one of the things that we want to do through the Watkins Institute is start doing research. Once again, we got to get the resources to do it. He has the Cleveland Clinic to back him up. I don't have that. Oh, yeah, look here. I called him about my brother. My brother had a heart attack. I told him, come, I'd get him well. He was hesitant. I said, but look, why don't you go to Cleveland Clinic? You know, I said, I'll talk to Elliston, and I'll go up there with you. So I called Elliston. He said he has to read. Now, he's my boy now. But he said, your brother got to read my book, and he got to look at Forks Over Knives. And after he reads the book and looks at Forks Over Knives, if he still wants to come, I'll take him. And I'm going to charge him $1,000 for the first day. And I'll let you in free. You understand? Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so what if you want to raise the good cholesterol because it's lower than it should be? I was told to eat things like olive oil or avocados to raise that good cholesterol level.
You can raise it by eating fruits, vegetables, and exercise. Yes. And what happens is, like when I was at Heartland, I used to follow the patients, and we had a very low-fat diet also. And the total cholesterol would go down, the bad cholesterol would go down, but the good cholesterol would also go down, all right? But then if you continued on the diet, the bad cholesterol and the total cholesterol would stay down, but the good cholesterol would start rising. And the importance, and that's important because the Framingham study, which is the largest, longest prospective study, shows that if the total cholesterol is 150, or if the good cholesterol, the total cholesterol divided by the good is 3.4 or less, then you don't have to worry about heart disease. And so it's important to have that good cholesterol up because that's the one that cleans out the vessels. The total is 150, or the total divided by the HDL is 3.4 or less. Dr. Neil and Shirley Ornish did it. And by the way, Shirley Ornish is a black woman. She's bad. I had a meeting with her. She's tough. They did the studies initially and showed that as the cholesterols come down, the blood vessels open up. All right? But they found that there was a group of people who had a genetic predisposition for a total cholesterol. But they found that as the HDL came up and the ratio came down, the vessels still opened up. And that's important because if you talk to doctors now, even if your total cholesterol is down and you got a good ratio, they still want to put you on medicines because of the LDL. But I asked them to show me the data. And they can't show it. Oh, statins is the number one selling drug in the world. The number one in the world. And and that was before they increased the usage of it. Now, if you have any kind of genetic predisposition, they give you the statins. You know, you don't have to have, your cholesterol is normal, your blood pressure is normal, your normal weight, but if you got it in your family, you need to take a statin. That's a bunch of foolishness. I can't say everything in church, you know. Well, some people call this diet extreme. You know, I think it was it Ellison or Caldwell, Ellison or Campbell, I don't remember which one said it, that I think it was Ellison, that said opening up the chest, he would call extreme, not following a diet. Because this diet is, it was Ellison, this diet is followed by over 4 billion of the 4.5 billion people around the world without heart disease, all right? And we need to get rid of the cheese, you know. The average American consumes about 65 pounds of cheese a year, and if you live to be 60, you're going to consume over 2 tons of cheese. That's 400 pounds of cheese. And since I don't eat any, then you eat my cheese. So some of y'all are really pigging out. All right? All right? Now, reverse it. You got to lose weight. You got to control your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your glucose, and decrease the inflammation. The strategy we use, decrease stress. Stress reduction, I believe stress is the number one cause of death in this country. Stress. The number one cause of death in this country. And the answer to stress, we'll see in a minute. So we gotta exercise, nutrition, and I put my patients on a fast. We teach you, by establishing first a starting point. All right? We get your weight, body, percent body fat, blood pressure, etc. Review your labs, other tests, and then we develop a plan for you. Our goal is to control, and then reverse these diseases. That's our goal at the Institute. And we want to recognize, you got to recognize that you're sick, all right? And you can decide that you want to get well. Mental and intellectual recognition. Mental and intellectual recognition. And you got to have emotional recognition, And then last but not least, you got to have spiritual recognition. You got to learn to turn things over to God, all right? So as I said, we first control and then we reverse. We put them on a fast. Now we put people on a fasting program for several reasons. 1, you lose weight. 2, we get your blood sugar control in 3 to 5 days. 4, you sleep better, you're less depressed, inflammation decreases. But one of the main reasons we do it, it's easier to get you into a good diet after you do the fast. Yes, ma'am.
The fasting juicing?
The fasting is what I call a modified juice program. We put you on fruit and vegetable juices, herbal teas, a vegetable broth, and water. And we have some herbs that go with it. And it works very, very well. We've been doing it since 1992. And it's an excellent program. But it really helps to transition. She's been on it. I think Ian's been on it. It helps to transition you, all right? Because it is not easy to change, all right? But once you do the program, it's much easier. Yes, sir?
If you're already a vegan, do you need to do it? Or
Oh, yeah, everybody needs to cleanse.
Okay.
I don't like using a lot of supplements even. But the one thing you need to do is cleanse your body, all right? Cleanse your body. Yes.
I can appreciate a lot of knowledge from professionals in the field, but I have a real problem when what they say goes against God's word.
Okay.
The Lord said fruits, nuts, and grains from the beginning. That was the original diet. So I'd rather take issue with that, number one, because I know when I was bodybuilding and running, the professionals told me, eat 6 meals a day. And that's what I was doing. Every 2 hours.
So what specifically are you taking issue with?
Well, the fact that he says no nuts.
Yeah. Well,
and then the avocados.
what we have to understand, though, and I understand your point.
I hear you with
and I agree with you in theory. Okay. But what we have to understand, that God gave us that diet, and we were in perfect shape. We're not in perfect shape anymore. All right. The reality is that we have so much. 80% of Americans are overweight. 80%. 57%, hold it now, 57% of black women are obese. 57%.
I completely hear you, but I don't think those people are eating that kind of diet.
Well,
because I know I am, and I'm not overweight, and I don't have any heart issues.
But you have been doing it for a while.
Right.
We're talking about people who are already sick.
Right, and I completely understand when there is sickness, certain changes
I
must
agree
take
totally
place.
with your philosophy.
I just
But
want to say
I think in practicality, on one point you're wrong. I watch my diabetics. I put them on the fast. I put them on the diet. They're walking, but I notice their sugars are messed up. And I start taking inventory of what they're eating. Almost invariably, they're eating a lot of nuts. And so I take the nuts out of their diet for a period of time. See, Dr. Ellison and I disagree on this point. See, Dr. Ellison says that once you do it, you never go back. I don't believe that.
That's okay.
And I've told him that.
Right.
You know,
right.
I've told him. I said, okay, we can agree to disagree.
Right.
Because I believe that once you
acclimate or whatever, your health is in good shape.
Reverse the problem,
yes.
then you go back to what God said in the first place.
Okay.
So that's where I come from. But while you're sick, see, that's the point I was making. While you're sick, you got to do what's necessary. My boy Les Brown says, when you've done the best you can and it's not sufficient, do what's necessary. And so what I've looked at is what's necessary. All right? Because when I left medical school, I made a decision early on that if things differ with what they taught me, with what God says, I'm going with God's way. All right? And I've maintained that, even with telling my patients not to eat nuts, because it's not, and I let them know, and fish and chicken. When I did this thing on fish and chicken, I said, look here, Christ ate fish. If he didn't, he was a hypocrite, because he cooked it and fed it. He fed the 5,000. He fed the 4,000. So the issue is not fish. The issue is the times. And if you read Ellen White says in the last days, we're going to have to stop eating meat and dairy. And the reason, she says, is the greed of men. You see, we have to understand. We have to understand this thing that we're dealing with is serious, and as we allow God to lead us and guide us, we can reverse all these diseases, and we can bring them to Him because He's the one that does the healing. Yes, ma'am. The animals are diseased, plus, but he says the greed of men. Example, I used to eat fish when we go out, and it'll be 43 years, June 30th, that I've been married. And in all those years, we may have cooked fish in our house one time. So we don't cook fish in our house. But when I would go to weddings, the vegetables are so pitiful, I would say, well, I'll take salmon. Then about 2-3 years ago, I decided, no, I'm not eating any more fish. I remembered a PBS special that I saw where there was this toxic waste. And it was so bad, nobody would accept it. They literally went up and down the seaboard, from the east all the way to the west, and nobody would take it. They finally took it way out in the middle of the ocean, and they dumped it. I said, wait a minute. Isn't that where we get our fish? Isn't that where we get our fish? We get it in the fresh water. So I said, I'm not eating it. So I don't like going out to restaurants, but my wife does. So I got a happy wife, happy life, right? So I take my wife out. So we go to this restaurant, and we go to it because they serve a lot of vegan menus. So my wife said, are you going to eat some fish? I said, no, baby, I told you I'm not eating no more fish. I'll just drink water if necessary. So my wife said, but I'm not going to eat any either. So when the waitress comes, she says, where do you get your salmon? Oh, we get it from the fresh waters of Alaska. Good answer, right? So my wife has to go to the restroom. On the way back, she sees the manager. You know what she did? She asked the manager, where do you get your salmon? Oh, we get it from the fresh waters of Alaska as babies. And then we bring them back and allow them to grow. What are we talking about? It's called farm fish. You understand? It's farmed fish. So even though they were originally caught in the fresh waters, they're now farmed fish. Now, most of the farmed fish in this country comes from China. All right? And you need to go and listen to my radio show. I ain't got time. I got to go. You need to listen to my radio show that we did on fish, because it is very enlightening. It is not good. I'll just say this and I'll move on. One researcher said that the only place you can find PCBs and toxic pollutants higher than in salmon is in a dump. And this is based on research. So go and check it out, because they've measured it, all right? They've measured it. All right, so we put you on a fast. Then I use a raw diet. I used to use a raw diet just for cancer patients. Then I put my diabetic patient. Then I put my heart patient. Now I use it for all my patients. I put them on a raw diet for 30 to 90 days, and then I put them on a primarily raw diet. Why? Raw heals. Raw heals. And then after the raw, a vegan plan. And you see my sweetheart? She's teaching there. Now, my wife's a lawyer, but she thinks she's a nutritionist. Before we got married, I said, you must be the nutritionist of our family. And she's taking that very seriously. One day I said, baby, I need to make a list of books for my patients, cookbooks. I come home, the whole floor of our bedroom are covered with books. And she's read every one of them. You understand? So this particular time, she was teaching my class, and I put that in there. Show how good looking. She's still good looking. You know, stress, take your burdens to the Lord and do what with them? Leave them there. We don't. Why? Because we don't trust God. We don't trust Him. We won't say it, but it's the truth. We don't trust Him. And we want to keep control of our messy lives. We've been beating our heads against the wall, blood's flying everywhere. We won't do it. I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, how you make it with that woman? He said, you got to learn to say yes, honey. I said, no, man, I can't do that. He said, you got to do it, Ted. You got to say yes, honey. I said, no, I'm the head of my house. He said, so am I. But you got to say yes. I said, no, I can't do it. He said, you tried your way. Try mine. Would you believe it worked? You know? See, but I was beating my head against the wall. And then later it hit me. This guy watched at the time, he had 50 years to watch his parents. All right? With a successful marriage. Now they've been married over 70 years. All right? Successful. I'd never seen a successful marriage in our family. Neither had my wife. So I was coming from a wrong perspective. But I had to listen, and I finally listened to him because he was my friend. All right? And he wanted what was best for me. All right? See, we got to learn to recognize that God is our friend. He's not trying to hold anything from you that's good. You know? It's not about your diet. You can be the biggest vegan in the world. Was Hitler a vegan? I think he was. I think Hitler was a vegan. So you can be the vegan. You can be all that stuff. That ain't it. See, you got to learn to have, and there's going to be some pork-eating folk in church, in heaven. I believe there's going to be some folk in heaven who eat pork. Because it's about the heart. All right? Not used to. They ate it. And they kept eating until they died. Died with pork in their stomach. God's grace is sufficient. The thief on the cross, he was a sinner until the last. God is awesome. I gotta go. All right. We gotta exercise. And we can't do this little 2-3 days a week. We got to do 1 to 2 hours, 4 to 5 times a week. And I really like to say I do this for you. My patients, I say 5 to 6 times. See, I'm hard. Or there's something called, I don't have it on this slide, it's called the Sprint 8. Ask me about it sometime. It's awesome. It's a system of variable intensity, and it's really fantastic. We got to go, we stress raw, juicing, smoothies, salads, nuts, seeds, and grains, all right? And this was the original diet of man. Fruits, grains, and nuts. That was the original diet of man. And then after sin, God permitted us to eat vegetables. Vegetables, if you look at Genesis 1:30, green vegetables were for the animals, not for us. It wasn't until after sin that God permitted us to eat greens. All right? Greens are repairers. Fruits are cleansers. And before sin, we just need to be clean. And then beans, my favorite. Excellent protein, even have a little insulin in them. They lower blood pressure. They lower cholesterol. They lower heart rate. They decrease insulin resistance for diabetes. And I told you this morning, there have been no line of cancer that beans didn't affect. And there's something called enhanced differentiation. Enhanced differentiation. And what this says is that beans, unlike other nutrients, don't just stop the growth of cancer cells. They take the cancer cells, grab it, and turn it back to normal. They take a cancer cell and turn it back to normal. It's called enhanced differentiation. Check it out. My God, you got to eat them.
Give me some beans. Give me some beans.
My God is awesome. So I said, well, maybe I'll just take me some beans, grind them up, because I eat beans almost every day. But I'm going to eat more. Grind them up, put them in the juicer. But raw beans won't work. They got to be cooked. All right? The only cancer that's been shown that raw is more effective than cooked is cancer of the kidney.
You said enhanced differentiation?
Enhanced differentiation.
Okay.
All right? You got to stay away from this fat and refined foods. All right? And we got to monitor. We track you. That's part of what we do with our health and fitness club. We track you. We have a monitoring sheet and so forth. And we do the fast. All right, I'm going to stop here. Any other questions? Go ahead.
When you're talking about cholesterol, I remember when I did your fasting that you were like, your cholesterol high, I guess that was talking about
The ratio. Yeah.
I guess my question is, because you were talking earlier about fat
Yes.
or oil, does that match up with cholesterol? Because I know your body.
Okay, let me I'm going to have to come back. But let me tell you this. We have to, a little knowledge is dangerous, all right? And we got to drink deep from the Privian Springs. There was a study that showed that vegans died at the same rate from heart disease as meat eaters. Vegans died at the same rate. And I said, well, this is crazy. That makes no sense. And then they looked at it, and they found that vegans had a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6s of 20 to 1. And the ratio should be 3 to 4 to 1. All right? And so when they stopped them from eating all the fats that was high in omega-6 and brought the ratio down, then vegans did better than all of them, because vegans were always slimmer, they had less diabetes, they had less everything, but they had more, the same or greater heart disease. Dying, not just heart disease, dying of heart disease. All right? So we have to always look at the kinds of fats that we're eating and the quantity. In 1992, I learned that it's not whether it's a monosaturated or polyunsaturated fat. It's the total calories from fat that really determines whether or not a person will have heart disease. And then once you deal with the total, then you start looking at, is it mono, is it poly, etc. You know, and so we have to just really look at that. But if you don't have heart disease, you clearly need nuts, you know, and almonds and walnuts are probably the best nut, you know, and you need to eat them on a regular basis. You also need to make sure you get your vitamin B12 and your vitamin D. All right? Just about everything else you can get from food. Vitamin E, but there are foods with vitamin E in it, but it's hard to have good B12 and D. Okay, yes, ma'am. Back and then you. Well, I talked to Dr. Thrash about glaucoma some years ago, and she said that in terms of her approach into treating glaucoma, she treated it with the same way she treated blood pressure. She said if you treat the blood pressure, you'll treat the glaucoma. And so I go hard on that. Plus, there are eye exercises that you can do to decrease the glaucoma and also decrease the cataracts. But it's the degenerative diet that's the problem. The degenerative diet. Yes, ma'am.
So for the B12 and the vitamin D, can we only obtain that through food, or is it okay to take vitamin D capsules or B12 pills, or is it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You probably have to get it from an exogenous. You won't be able to get it for the most part from your food.
So it's okay to take the capsules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking. I'm looking. If anybody got some light, I'm looking because I don't like to use vitamins and minerals. The best vitamins and minerals come from food. All right, but in these exceptions, we have to consider that. All right, the exceptions. For instance, calcium. There was this big crave for calcium, the calcium tablets, and it asked me about it, and I said I can't give you an opinion yet. I got to study it. I don't like to talk about anything unless I really looked at it. And so when I looked at it, I found out that when you take these pills, you just have an expensive urine. All right, because all the calcium is really going out into the urine. And so you're just wasting your money. But if you eat the dark leafy vegetables and so forth, then what happens is that the calcium is in what we call a chelated form. It's associated with proteins and other nutrients, amino acids, really. The body doesn't need protein, the body needs amino acids. So it's attached to these amino acids, and the body can utilize it much more effectively and efficiently. And so you don't need to take a whole lot. For instance, vitamin C. They did a big study because they looked epidemiologically at the people who were taking in a lot of vitamin C at a very low rate of colon cancer. So the American Cancer Society sponsored a study giving people vitamin C. They had to stop the study because they were getting an increase. And when they reported it at Howard, I laughed. I said, the fools. They need to take it from an original source. All right? When you take it from the original source, then you should expect to get the results, So, yes?
Just real quick, I heard that vitamin D isn't really a vitamin.
I'm sorry?
I heard that vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It doesn't really fit in with the regular vitamins. So it's like a different, something like a hormone or something like that.
Well, vitamin D has a structure similar to hormones. You have to be careful when people talk, you know.
Okay.
Vitamin D is it's a vitamin. But it does have a structure similar to hormones. And it's used to make all of our sex hormones. It's used to make cholesterol and so forth. But it is a vitamin, you know, because you have to look at how vitamins function. Vitamins speed up, they're catalysts. They speed up or slow down reactions in the body. That's what they do. So by definition, it's a vitamin.
What are your thoughts about probiotics? And is it a good idea to eat fermented foods every day in order to get fat?
I don't use probiotics. If you eat a balanced meal, generally you'll get all the probiotics you need. Fermented foods, the fermented foods that I recommend are if you're going to eat tofu, for instance. I recommend eating fermented tofu. Fermented soy. The Japanese probably eat more soy than anybody in the world, Japanese and the Koreans. And yet they have one of the lowest rates of heart disease and cancer. There's not even a word for hot flashes in the Japanese language, all right? And it's because of the soy. But when Americans get hold to something, they mess it up. And so they got the soy, and they're making the soy out of genetically modified seeds and so forth, and they're processing the stuff to death, and that's where the problem is. So if you're going to eat miso soy or tempeh, that kind of thing, then you're okay. And even then, I think you should eat it in moderation, especially tofu, because tofu is a concentrated food, and anything concentrated, the body doesn't like it in high concentrations. All right.
Have you had,
last two questions.
Okay. Have you had any success treating depression with niacin, number one? And number two, what are your thoughts on coconut oil helping with the bad cholesterol?
All right,
there are documented studies on that.
All right, so I've not used niacin for depression. However, I've treated depression. I've used, what I primarily use is coenzyme Q, 5-HTP, and I have some other herbs that I use, and I change the person's diet, I get them exercising, but most importantly, I focus on their life. I have something I call the 4 Ps. What is your passion? What is God's purpose? A written plan, and the implementation or production of that plan. What I find is most people are not happy. They're not happy because they're not doing what they want. Not only are they not doing what they want, many don't even know what they want to do. And those that know don't believe that they can ever achieve it. And so they're in a state of constant depression, all right? But see, my God tells me I can do anything. You know what I'm talking about? I can do anything. So why should I be depressed? There's no limit. And one of the things I'll say to you Christians, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Because the Jews are rich. Why? Because God blessed them. So how come he's not blessing us? You know, see, we talk this talk. We need to ask God. He says you get not because you ask not, but when you ask amiss. You ask for the wrong reason. If we ask God, I believe he will pour out blessings, and we need to. I told when I first came to D.C., they were talking about getting off on the Sabbath. And so I said, well, I got tired. You know, I don't like talking about a problem. I like talking about a solution. All right? So I raised my hand. It was in prayer meeting now, but they were having this discussion. So I raised my hand. I said, well, why don't we? I said, everybody like to be off on the weekend. The Christian and the non-Christian. You know, it ain't just us that want to be off on the weekend. They want to be off for a different reason, but that ain't our business. You know, why don't we start our own businesses and we can determine when we want to be off? You know, they almost crucified me.
Oh, my.
I mean, they got the stones up. Boy, I had to sneak out the back door. I'm being a little sarcastic. But seriously, they came at me. You know, they couldn't understand why you want to have your own business. Why not?
Right.
Oh, Lord have mercy. You know, we have to learn to trust God even when we can't trace him. That's what I was trying to think of this morning. Trust when you can't trace.
And the coconut oil.
Oh, the coconut oil. Yeah. They used to malign coconut oil because it's saturated, but it's a medium chain saturated fat. And it's very, very good. It lowers the cholesterol. It reverses dementia. It lowers, it's just weight. Very good.
Helps you to lose weight.
It helps you lose weight. And so I use coconut oil just about every day. All right. Not every day. I use coconut oil. You understand? And so we've been lied to about a number of things, and coconut oil is one of them. All right? Right here, last question.
It's just something I heard
I'm
about.
sorry? I put it on my toast. Anything, and if you cook with coconut oil, it breaks down at a much higher temperature than all the other oils. You should not cook with olive oil. You should not cook with olive oil because it breaks down too early. But coconut oil doesn't break down. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one thing I heard about B12 that when you get up in the morning, you can actually, before you brush your teeth, actually drink some water and you get enough B12. I don't know how true it is because it's produced overnight when you sleep. So,
well, that's a way to get some of it. The issue is that we can't get enough. All right? We can't get enough just from that. And so, you know, see, I don't like to take anything. And I have to make myself take stuff, including stuff that's good for you. But B12 is something that you probably should take, you know, because, you know, you'll get a neuropathy because you don't have the adequate B vitamins for the nerves. And B's, we use B vitamins for blood pressure. It helps to get that blood pressure down. We put people on high potency B complex, B100, you know, and it helps. It helps. I've enjoyed being with you all. I think you have a lot going on here. Keep up the good work, you know, but let's take it to another level, you know. And what you were saying is absolutely correct. And we must come together and we must do some things. So you have a good, and my boy Dr. Sharps, he's my boy. So y'all in good hands. God bless, and we'll see you next time. And the reason I have to run, my grandson's birthday, you know, was Thursday, and Papa been gone all day. So he's Theodore III, you know, and he came to my office one day a few weeks ago, and somebody said, "Are you going to be a doctor?" He said, "I am a doctor." All right now. Oh, he's a smoothie man. Oh yeah. Yeah, I picked him up from school, and he said, "Papa, you gonna take me to your house and make me a smoothie?" Yeah.
Amen. Just want to thank Dr. Watkins for coming here today, and we hope to have him back. All right. So the next presenter is Sister Bogans. Yeah, she's been waiting in the wings. So we're going to have the last presentation, and then we're going to close. So we're just going to maybe sing a song, and then after she's done, we'll go home. So we're going to sing a song before we start the next session. Do we have any favorites? Okay, we'll sing number 337, Redeemed How I Love.